In 64 CE, a catastrophic fire gutted the city of Rome. To suppress rumors that he had ordered the fire himself, Emperor Nero targeted the Christian minority, executing them by having them torn by dogs or setting them aflame to serve as nighttime lamps. Caligula, Nero's predecessor, famously declared himself a living god and squandered the imperial treasury's massive 2.7 billion sesterces surplus on extravagant games and megalomaniacal building projects. Even the more experienced Tiberius lived his final years in a state of extreme paranoia, withdrawing to a fortress on Capri while leaving the capital paralyzed by deadly treason trials used to eliminate his political rivals. This era is synonymous with blood and dysfunction. Yet, beneath the headlines of the mad emperors, Rome was thriving. This very period launched the Pax Romana, 2 centuries of stability and economic growth that reached every corner of the Mediterranean. The empire survived its rulers because Rome's first emperor, Augustus, engineered the state to function on autopilot. He built a system that remained robust even when the man at the top was falling apart. The Roman Republic collapsed because it had a citizen militia that was loyal to individual generals rather than the state. Whoever promised the most land and loot could essentially buy an entire army and march on Rome. Augustus created the Aerarium Militare, a military treasury funded by an inheritance and sales tax. This centralized pool of money bypassed generals entirely. Requiring 20 years of service, soldiers were guaranteed a state-funded retirement bounty of 12,000 sesterces, or a land grant. Because the state, not the general, held the purse strings, the rank and file had a direct financial contract with the office of the emperor. Rebellious commanders could no longer reliably convince their men to commit treason for a paycheck. This created a standing army that secured the borders and enforced the law as an institutional presence, regardless of whether the emperor in Rome was an efficient administrator or a paranoid recluse. But an empire needs more than just a professional army. It needs the consent of its educated elite. Augustus knew that to prevent aristocratic revolt, he had to provide a unifying narrative for his new government. He relied on Gaius Maecenas, a wealthy equestrian who acted as a de facto minister of culture. Maecenas curated a circle of literary giants, providing financial support to poets who could articulate the values of the new regime. Works like Virgil's Aeneid gave the empire a divine pedigree, tracing Augustus's family back to the gods. It framed his rule not as a military coup, but as a predestined restoration of order and traditional Roman virtues. This cultural program made the Principate synonymous with Roman identity. By the time the next generation took power, the idea of returning to the old republic felt socially and politically unthinkable. When the bickering Senate proved incapable of managing a massive global empire, Emperor Claudius took the administration into his own hands. He established a professional civil service, operated by educated freedmen, former slaves who owed their entire status and wealth to the imperial household. Powerful freedmen like Pallas managed the imperial finances, while Narcissus handled the vast network of correspondence with provincial governors. They turned the palace into a corporate headquarters that ran the empire's logistics. While Caligula was hosting scandalous parties and Nero was competing in chariot races, these tax collectors and legal secretaries were quietly managing the grain supply and processing the state's legal petitions. This bureaucratic layer functioned as the empire's shock absorber. The political center could decay, but the provincial administration and massive infrastructure projects, like Rome's aqueducts, continued to operate flawlessly. Even a robust system has a breaking point. Nero's aggressive tax hikes and his neglect of the military finally pushed the provincial legions to revolt in 68 CE. Faced with a military coup and declared a public enemy by the Senate, Nero committed suicide. He left no heirs, instantly extinguishing the bloodline that had founded the empire. This void triggered a brutal civil war, known as the Year of the Four Emperors, as 4 different generals fought to occupy the throne. The Praetorian Guard demonstrated their power as kingmakers during this chaos. When Emperor Galba refused to pay the bounty they were promised, they dragged him into the forum and assassinated him in broad daylight. By the end of 68 CE, the founding dynasty was gone, yet the administrative engine they built remained the only functioning power in the Roman world. Vespasian emerged as the victor of the civil war. Unlike Augustus, he wasn't a young aristocrat. He was a seasoned general who understood that the empire's bones were still strong. He resumed command of the same legions and bureaucratic offices his predecessors had refined, immediately restoring the state to its established routine. The Julio-Claudian legacy isn't the drama of its individual rulers. It is the proof that if a society builds robust institutions, a professional military, a working bureaucracy, and a unifying narrative, it can survive even the most destructive leaders at the top.